U.S. Senator Scott Brown is also in the news. Senator Brown is an interesting guy. And many of us, when he was running against Marsha Coakley, said, well, this could be pretty good. This might be okay, right? Certainly very, very different from the Kennedys, very, very different from Martha Coakley and the rest of it. And one of the folks who was sort of at the lead on this is William Jacobson. He's a professor. He has a wonderful blog, which is called legalinsurrection.com. He was, I would dare say, one of the more vocal, more visible, more active supporters of Scott Brown. Not so much anymore. And I want to bring him into this and see exactly why he has changed his mind on this. Professor, good morning.
Hi, good morning. How are you?
I'm doing great. I appreciate you being here. And before we do anything else, love legalinsurrection.com.
Oh, thanks a lot.
It's some great stuff. All right, now you had a column the other day called "Bye Bye Brown." Tell me what's happened here.
Yes, when we worked to get Scott elected, everybody knew he would be somewhat independent, and he said that. So, no surprises that, he tends to be independent in his voting. But what I think bothered me the most was his recent op-ed that he wrote in Politico about the Ryan healthcare plan, and essentially saying that, that plan abandons seniors. And, I really felt that was kind of, to me, crossing a line. It's one thing to be independent. It's one thing to vote your conscience. It's another thing to, I think, unfairly mischaracterize a Republican plan and do it in such a way as to actually feed into what I consider to be a false Democratic narrative about the Ryan plan, which is that it abandons seniors. And that's actually not true. So I felt that op-ed, for me, crossed the line between being independent and actually trying to damage, or whether he tried to or not, damaging the Republicans by feeding into a false narrative. So to me, that was really a breaking point.
All right, and this has been for you is it an emotional thing? I mean, you feel like there's a loss in your family?
I don't know if I'd go that far, but I would say that, it is disappointing. Again, not that he is voted against the Ryan plan. I mean, right. I make it very clear in my article that, if he has an alternative, that's one thing. So if he had written an op-ed in Politico saying, well, the Ryan plan isn't quite right, here's what I would do differently,
right.
That would be one thing. But he didn't do that. All he said is that, well, we need to attack fraud, waste, and abuse. I mean, we've been trying to do that for 20 years, and it doesn't work. And it's never going to work because the nature of the Medicare system is that, it is fraught with abuse. Any, large government program is going to have a lot of abuse in it, a lot of fraud, and that's pretty well documented. But I really felt if he was going to attack the Ryan plan, one, he had to do it in a way that was substantive. He had to come in and say, here's what I would do differently. And two, he didn't need to say that the plan does not protect seniors because, in fact, anyone who's currently in the system has no change. Mm-hmm. Anyone who's a decade away from going into the system has no change. Right. So, we're seeing the Democratic advertisements on TV with Granny literally being thrown over a cliff. Right. And this feeds into that narrative, and it is a false narrative.
All right, so tell me, if you, who I would dare say was a very strong, passionate supporter of Scott Brown, is walking away from Scott Brown, what do you make of his reelection chances?
Well, I think that's, he'll have to do that. He's got a lot of money. When I say bye-bye Brown, that doesn't mean I'm working against him or want him to lose. Right. I don't want him to lose because the alternative is going to be so much worse. Right. But with my limited resources, I am not going to devote it to a cause where somebody writes an op-ed like this. I hope he gets reelected, and I hope he does well, but he's going to have to do it a different way, I think, than he did last time. Last time he really had a huge, upsurge in support among people who support the Tea Party movement, among people who were disaffected from the Democratic Party, even if they weren't necessarily in sync with the Tea Party movement, and among the blogosphere, which helped him raise a lot of money and helped generate support for him. He's going to have to do it a different way. He probably has the resources to do it that different way, but I think, he and his advisors need to ponder, why he needs to, essentially poke a finger in the eye of the people who supported supported him. And again, it's not that he's opposing the Ryan plan.
Right.
It's the way he went about it that really, really bothered me.
Great points. I appreciate you being here. That's Professor William Jacobson. He is a professor down at Cornell University. He's got a great blog, legalinsurrection.com. Why do I reference it? Because he was one of Scott Brown's biggest supporters. I mean, visible, vocal, passionate, loved Scott Brown. And his most recent entry on his website, legalinsurrection.com, says, Scott Brown, thanks and goodbye. All right? When you lose supporters like this, you've got a problem, and that is definitely part of the Scott Brown problem right now. Now, we've spoken about it many times. Look, Scott Brown was never a Tea Party guy. We knew that. There's no question about that. We knew that Scott Brown was not a rock-solid conservative. There's no question about that. But the manner in which he seems to have gone out of his way to offend the very people who had been on board with him. That's the problem here. So we'll get a link up once our internet is up and running again to the professor's blog. You'll be able to take a look at that.